How do you make confident decisions when it comes to cybersecurity? Our next speaker will teach us how to enrich the security stack in order to make sound decisions. Let us learn from Mr. Xavier Tang, Senior Sales Engineer for Asia Pacific at Recorded Future.
Thank you for coming to attend this session. My name is Xavier from Recorded Future. So today I'll be talking about intelligence integration and how actually it helps you to enrich your SIEM to make confident decisions. This is definitely a common scene where analysts come in on a day-by-day basis. They see a lot of alerts regarding the IOCs, IPs, domains, and even hashes, where they're wondering all these traffic that's going outbound or incoming to your network. Are they actually good or bad or even worse? Without any context set to it, it makes it very difficult for the analysts to be able to know what is the next course of action they should do. So what should they do next? So if you look at the challenges of a security operation, from a security monitoring end, they actually all have to deal with the overwhelming volume of the alerts, excessive time and spent on researching all these indicators. Imagine if you see one alert with 5 IPs, you probably spend about 20 to 30 minutes just to even find out a little bit more from different sources and try to collate them. And then if this has been validated to be a real incident, they have to pass it on to the incident response team. The incident response team have to do the lengthy response time as well due to the lack of the context also. So they have to spend a lot of time to look into the incident, finding a lot more. And when they uncover more indicators, they actually have to find out a little bit more as well. In terms of that will cause some delay and in terms of containment and the eradication process because of the time spent. And if you look at the threat hunting team as well, without knowing the tools and the tactics being used by the attackers themselves, it actually makes it work a lot difficult for them to actually uncover threats in their environment. So the question could be, it will be, well, how can actually intelligence help in this end of the thing to help with the operation? Is there like a value button when you can actually press and actually give you the right context to the whole the situation? If you come back to look at it from each of these functions itself, number one, from a security monitoring end, we spoke about the challenges already. The problem is when you see so many alerts coming in, it's actually not good to be able to just manage them, each alert as with the same level of priority, right? Because if you're talking about recon activity versus a C2 outbound traffic, you definitely know which one is the more critical one. So the main aim of a security analyst when it comes to the security monitoring aspect is really about reducing alert fatigue, and we're trying to prioritize which is the more critical alerts itself. And in order to do that, you need the evidence and the context so that you can actually take actions confidently. So here we have an example of what it looks like in terms of giving you the evidence, you know what sort of traffics are going on with the IP itself. And what about the incident response team? Like we mentioned just now, when they're being caught in, usually they're caught in the semi-blind situation whereby they don't have enough context to know about the incident itself. They need to spend some time investigating. And during this investigation process, they actually may find out a lot more IOCs that they need to research on. They spend a lot of time to do so. So actually, in terms of the response time, you actually lengthen the whole process itself. But what if they are able to identify threat actors' infrastructures effectively, quickly, and then also know what to do in terms of what's the next course of action? That will actually help them with their incident response cycle in terms of the containment and also eradication process. And threat hunting itself is actually a human-centric process where they are actually looking out for problems inside your networks, trying to uncover threats that might already exist. So the mantra is really about assuming that your network has been breached itself. And in order for them to do so, they need to know the threat actors, TTPs, then be able to deploy some of these techniques that's relevant to all techniques being deployed, used by these threat actors. Basically, it's in the form of using a tech-based technique to actually look into the hunting process, and so that by applying technical intelligence they'll be able to look for signs of presence of these attackers' trails as well. So when we take a step back and try to define what intelligence is about, it's really about the ability, by and large, it's about the ability to acquire, understand, and reason, to understand the purpose, the truth, the answer of circumstances. So in a way, it's actually a product and also a process that we need to take note of. So then what about actionable intelligence? So when you have the indicators like we were showing in the earlier screenshots, what can you do about it? In order for the intel to be actionable, essentially you need to be able to do the enrichment. The enrichment of this indicators itself must come from a good breadth of sources, which is actually based on a real-time analysis and real-time collection as well. And when it presents to you post-enrichment, the risk score, it's also important to note that it's not just giving you the risk score by itself. Later I'll show you the example of what it looks like. It must be able to explain to you where and why these risk scores exist and how it's actually being calculated, so that the analysts themselves be able to make a fast verdict and also be able to do a rapid triage on the incident itself, because they are confident to make the decision based on the evidence that's presented to them. Here is an example of intelligence where it actually brings relevant context to an indicator. If you see here itself, the IP itself, that, for example, is being shown in the alert to the analyst. When he look up for it, the first thing that he will see is that it has a very high score of 95 out of 99, very malicious. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is all the evidence that actually back up this risk score itself. Like in this case, you see that there are it's a current CNC server that's actively communicating. And also, it's also important to know that when that happens itself, actually the sightings and where the sources are also being shown here. So it actually gives the analyst that level of confidence to know that I can actually verify some of these contexts as well and be able to make my actions immediately. And you note that while during this analysis process, they actually come out linked to another indicator to actually be able to further your investigation. So just now we look at the IP itself. From the IP itself, it actually brings you to this malware information, and be able to click on it. You'll be able to pivot from one indicator to another. In this case, you'll be able to find out a lot more regarding to this malware itself, what sort of information it is. And if you actually realize this actually translates to the support your incident response team and also the threat hunting team, because there's also a hunting package that's also available to actually help the SOC team with using Yara, Sigma, and also Snort to actually hunt for adversaries, malware, or even traffic of interest. So hence, that comes the question of like, what is a good collection process in terms of intelligence? A good collection must be able to provide the end-to-end view of the threat from the left-hand side, when you actually see the attackers in terms of the intent and the capability, based on what they are talking about in the dark web, the different forums, messaging platforms, OSINT, and pay sites, basically looking into the activities that they are using on these platforms itself. And sometimes they talk about credential leaks and data dumps as well, and even talking about proof of concept codes that they are trying to sell or even acquire. And in the midpoint, which is also very important, this is where they actually set up their infrastructure to launch their attack. So telemetries coming in from all these points are very important for you to be able to link up the attackers' intent and all the way to the way they set up their infrastructures. And on the right side of the spectrum, you actually see that the IOCs and the signatures relating to the endpoints, the victims themselves, whereby they are actually being attacked, toolkits that's being used by the attackers, that the malware that they use to deploy to the victim ML as well. So having the end-to-end view of a threat makes it possible for you to get you the right context in terms of the intelligence itself. So then the question comes, how do you actually empower your SIEM or operation, or even your SOC operations with the intelligence itself? As we described just now, the goal is really about being able to do correlation with your alert, so that you can identify and prioritize which of these alerts are of higher criticality. So in order to do so, the action itself is really about improving the correlation with high fidelity intelligence to help you to prioritize effectively and accurately. So having the additional context allows the SOC team to make fast determination by seeing the scores and the supporting evidence. And then you can be able to pivot out to do further investigation as well. And in terms of the success itself, is actually minimizing the time to actually triage and then investigate on these incidents as well. So what we really want is, in this case, from the left-hand side, you actually see the questions for analysts without intelligence, looking at all these indicators that's coming up. Are they benign or are they malicious? How do they manage so many alerts? Is it linked to any threat actors or even the threat actors TCP? What some of the questions they have seen before, maybe this IP has seen before, what should they do? And all the way to this, whereby the risk scores is actually presented vis-a-vis towards side by side with the indicators themselves, and also at the same time providing them with the right evidence to know what this IPs, these indicators risk profile is about. So again, it's always about the fast triage and fast verdict and actually rapid triage process. So here I'm showing a screenshot of what it looks like in terms of integrating the intelligence into a SIEM, whereby you fuse or integrate your internal logs with intelligence itself to present to you the threat profiles of your network itself, how bad the traffic is at this moment. It gives you the ability to respond as fast as possible. And this brings you another view whereby you'll be able to do correlation with actionable intel. Like we mentioned earlier, when you look at your indicator, you'll be able to fuse directly with the evidence and the risk score so that you know what to do next. And of course, when we talk about this as well, this is what we are seeing from in terms of the alerting point. What happens if the analyst needs to be able to do a little more research on any indicators as well. They're able to do this and on the SIEM solution as well. You look at it in the sneak screenshot, whereby they're able to, if they find out a little bit more, for example, they found another hash that's related to the incident that they are investigating on and analyzing, they will be able to do real-time enrichment, and then with that, they'll be able to uncover more threats as well. So this is what I would like to share today. Thank you very much for your time. You can find out a little more from our recorded feature Cyber Daily. You can actually download our free browser extension as well. We do have many integration as well. So you can actually sign up for the Splunk Trial if you're actually a Splunk user today. Thank you very much. Have a good day.